It's time for Debrief, TRT World's wrap-up of the top stories from last week.
What sort of games do you play here?
Leaders of Germany, France and the UK have released a joint statement demanding Israel to immediately lift restrictions on aid into Gaza to end a humanitarian catastrophe.
The United Arab Emirates has announced that it will immediately resume aid drops over Gaza. This comes a day after Israel confirmed that it would allow foreign countries to parachute humanitarian aid into the enclave.
They said there would be a humanitarian ceasefire. We didn't see it. We saw the planes, but we didn't see what they dropped. If they dropped it, it would only be a few boxes. What would that suffice?
Gaza's health officials say more people in the enclave have died as a direct result of malnutrition in around the last fortnight than over the previous 21 months of the conflict.
Approximately 150 containers of food have been dropped in. This sounds a lot, but if you have a closer look, this is approximately 15 truckloads of aid, where the need here in Gaza is equivalent to 500 trucks of aid on a daily basis.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it, and you can't fake that.
The situation on the ground in Gaza is absolutely intolerable.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced that the UK will recognise Palestinian statehood in September unless Israel takes steps to end the Gaza war.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has laid out a series of stipulations that need now be met. These include agreeing to a ceasefire and a long-term peace plan, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution, and ruling out annexation of the occupied West Bank.
Canada has become the latest Western country to announce it will recognise Palestine as a state at the next UN General Assembly in September.
This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance.
More than 10 countries have announced their decision to recognize the state of Palestine since the start of the war on Gaza, 3 in the past week alone.
Portugal, too, says it is considering it. It would bring the total to more than 140, evidence of growing frustration.
Statehood for the Palestinians is a right, not a reward. And the denial of statehood would be a gift to extremists everywhere.
Anthony, what difference does recognition actually make practically?
How about nothing? I mean, ultimately, this is the illusion of progress.
It's one thing to recognize a state. It's another thing to recognize the human rights and stand up for the human rights of those living within it. So we need to ask questions such as, if you're going to recognize Palestine as a state, and if you presumably are going to recognize the rights of its citizens, are we also going to continue to transfer arms to the state which is attacking Palestine?
It is now set in stone that Palestine Action has now been proscribed as a terrorist organisation.
This will massively suppress people's right to protest. This will put fear in everyone's hearts.
The ban means membership or support for the group is now a crime, which can lead to up to 14 years in jail.
Arresting 80-plus-year-old people for holding signs.
Putting them under the terrorism legislation is a step too far.
I mean, really, what do you think? Free speech, and you can get 6 months and a lifelong terrorism conviction on record.
A co-founder of Palestine Action is challenging the UK government's decision to ban the group under anti-terrorism legislation.
Huda Moray's team have argued the ban is, quote, disproportionate, goes against international law and is an authoritarian abuse of power.
Co-founder of Palestine Action has won his bid to bring legal challenge against the government's decision to ban the group under anti-terrorism legislation.
After a week of deliberation, the judge agreed, saying it was, quote, reasonably arguable that the move would interfere with that right, and acknowledged that the group wasn't consulted on the ban while the Israeli government and others were. That they now have the green light to move forward, to take on, to challenge the government over this ban, the decision that came into effect last month.
And here's another serving of top stories with our news in brief.
On Wednesday, a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake, one of the most powerful ever recorded, struck Russia's eastern Kamchatka coast off the Pacific. Not long after, a volcano on the peninsula began erupting. While the quake only damaged buildings and injured a few people, it triggered tsunami alerts across the Pacific. As far away as Chile, millions along the coastline were evacuated. But fears of a major tsunami dwindled by the next day as the waves that reached Japan, Hawaii, and the US West Coast didn't cause major damage. US President Donald Trump's patience is growing thin with Moscow. And on Tuesday, he demanded Russia agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine.
10 days from today.
If Russia fails to comply with the August 8th deadline, it will be hit with tariffs, along with the customers of its oil. Kremlin's reaction to that was less than welcoming. Former Russian president and the deputy chair of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, called it an ultimatum and a quote step towards war. Both men continue to exchange escalating warnings. And Trump now says he has ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be moved where he deems appropriate. Meanwhile, Russia continued to strike Ukraine, including the capital Kiev.
How many meetings have there been, and what has been achieved? Nothing. And all that Trump says is, I'm upset by President Putin's behavior. I'm upset, I did not expect, so what? No consequences whatsoever.
On a different front, after 5 days of fighting on the border, Thailand and Cambodia agreed to an unconditional ceasefire on Monday. But the truce hangs by a thread. Both sides are accusing each other of violating the ceasefire, and Cambodia said on Thursday that Thailand is wrongfully detaining its soldiers. Bangkok says the soldiers will be released after an investigation. More than 40 people have been killed, and thousands have been displaced in the dispute over the ownership of 2 ancient temples. Palestinian activist and the co-creator of the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land, Avda Hathalim, was reportedly gunned down by an illegal Israeli settler in the occupied West Bank. A witness to his murder spoke exclusively to TRT World.
I was right next to Ode, and it's hard to know when exactly his final moments were. I witnessed him bleeding out, and I saw him being given CPR. But in terms of what it was like, I mean, it's not the first time I've witnessed Israeli settlers, in particular in the West Bank, just thoroughly enjoying the pain and the power that they have over people.
Just months earlier, Auda landed in San Francisco, ready to start a nationwide speaking tour, exposing illegal settlement expansion and violence in the occupied West Bank.
He was unable to exit the airport, but he was in the SFO airport when he was forced to return, when his visa was canceled.
A few months later, he's dead, reportedly killed by a man the U.S. had once sanctioned before the Trump administration removed him from that list.
And don't forget our programs, Africa Matters, Money Talks, and Beyond the Game.
President Donald Trump has ordered the reimposition of reciprocal tariffs on dozens of trading partners, his cornerstone strategy for reshaping global trade to benefit the US economy. Markets had been anticipating this deadline for months. What's been the initial response from those affected?
Frankly, a disaster both for the United States and for all the countries involved, and it's a lose-lose situation. And for example, the Europeans may be better off than they think because they're not being forced to put higher tariffs on their own consumers, which is a good thing. But certainly the Europeans are going to have to pay 15% on their exports. Well, they're not paying it, but their price of their exports is going to go up by 15%, which is going to, slow their exports. So it does hurt these countries, certainly, but it also hurts their own consumers.
Now, Lesotho is already in a 2-year national state of disaster, not because of extreme weather or calamities, but due to soaring unemployment and job losses. A lot of the blame is being pointed at US President Donald Trump's threat to impose a 50% tariff due to start on August 1st. And that has a devastating blow on the country.
Orders cancelled, wages unpaid. Tariffs might be President Trump's favorite word, but for factory workers in Lesotho, it spells disaster.
Lesotho is a very small economy. The trade deficit that exists between Lesotho and the US, it's a natural trade deficit that can happen when you have this type of disparities between two economies. It cannot be breached, and certainly it cannot be breached by imposing tariffs.
As soon as the tariffs were announced, we started having some problems with our buyers. We were like on and off. There was no proper, we didn't know where we're standing.
The government says the country's textile industry employs some 12,000 people, and a US tariff increase could put more factories out of business.
England have retained their title by beating Spain on penalties in Sunday's final in Basel. It was a remarkable road to glory for Sarina Wiegman's side, and her team showed it's not over until they think it's all over. It is now. Peter Franks reports.
It felt like déjà vu as thousands of England fans turned out in London to celebrate a second successive Euros victory. An opening day loss and two penalty shootouts later, England are European champions, avenging that World Cup final defeat by Spain.
We show so much fight, we show so much character, but we show most of all what it is to be English, and that's not going down without a fight.
It's been an incredible road, but just like in 2022, the Lionesses bared their teeth and are the pride of England once again.
Self-determination, belief, and the sort of dogged attitude that Sarina Wiegman has established in this England side. It was a remarkable tournament for England, and one where miracles will doubt by the bucket load, especially in those knockout stages. Look at this, the England team led during those knockout stages for just under 5 minutes. I'll say that again, throughout the knockout stages, they only led for under 5 minutes, but they had this unbelievable never say die attitude that carried them through the tournament. Were England the best and most exciting team at this competition? Absolutely not, but you don't have to be champions. They were dealt a little bit of luck, but champions make their own luck in competitions like this.